following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Flat Earth Files. As we record, it's Tuesday, February 28th, a little bit after 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope everybody's having a good week. We had a very good interview last night with Kaysen, and tonight we have another special guest here on episode 23. Joining us tonight is Megan. She's from Connecticut. She reached out a few weeks ago, and she's going to share her journey to the truth, and we'll certainly talk some flat earth as well. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Megan. Good evening, Megan. How are you?
Hey, good. How's it going?
It's going really well, really well. So tell us a little bit about yourself and talk about your journey to the truth.
So I am really the definition of the ordinary person who just kind of had the floodgates open in front of me, and now I can't stop digging. I'm 32. I work from home and stay at home with my almost 2-year-old son. Originally from New Hampshire, I went to college in Rhode Island, so I've kind of been around New England a little bit. Ended up really just working in the restaurant industry for most of my past, and now I do restaurant management from home. Pretty much just everything starting with COVID, I think, was really the big beginner for me, and that's what made me and during the lockdowns, I had nothing but time, and I started just searching everything.
What was the first quote-unquote conspiracy theory that you came across and you said, wait a second, what's going on here?
So there's been a couple throughout my life, like when I was younger, that I didn't really realize were conspiracy theories or really realize exactly what they meant. But I remember, so I'm 32, so I'm, in probably middle school by this point, sitting on a desktop computer, YouTubing the 9/11 videos. And I remember that and it blowing my mind. But at that age, you're kind of like, oh, wow, this could have been fake. They could have faked it. But you don't really realize this was a plan to control a group of people type of fake.
Right.
And so I've always kind of had I don't know about a passion. Now it's a passion, but I've always just had kind of a interest in, what's the truth and what they're not telling us. But the first big thing really for me was Trump. Trump came in very different than other presidents. I never had a huge interest in politics. And the way that they attacked him, like many people, made me say, okay, this guy must be very good then.
Very interesting. So, yeah, I was on the Trump train for back in 2016 as well. I was a little disappointed how he handled COVID and was pro-jab and even post his and obviously everybody knows that the election was rigged. That goes without saying. But I personally come to a point in my life where I've realized that these people at the elite levels, personally, and this is just my opinion, I don't think that they genuinely are looking out for our best interest. However, I interviewed a guy from prison. He was part of the January 6th day. He didn't even step foot in the Capitol. His name's Jeremy Brown, and he's getting sentenced in a couple of weeks, and he's looking at 41 or 51 years, and he was one of the 900 people that was set up by the FBI, and he himself was also disappointed I guess he felt that he was kind of set up by Trump. But nevertheless, I think, and again, this is just my opinion, is I think they played it very well because you had an arch nemesis like Hillary Clinton. In my opinion, is the Clinton family, one of the most evil families in the world. The Bushes are up there, obviously. We could go on and on about there's a lot.
Right, 100%. And that was his appeal, was wanting to get rid of the
drain in the swamp
family.
Is what he said, right?
Yes.
Yep. So you go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so No worries. It's so hard with all of this stuff not to tangent, and that's it's one of the things that happens. You go a million directions, but
Yeah.
Trump at the end of the day, whether he's one of them or not, we may never know. But he really opened my eyes to the fact that they own the media. I think that was really what it was for me, was that the media is not honest in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so when you start to realize the media is lying to you, and you start to realize, okay, well, what else could they be lying about? And it just really starts spiraling from there. During the COVID lockdowns, one of the big things for me, and sometimes the timetable gets a little bit mixed up because we had a baby in May 2020.
Oh my goodness.
May
God bless you.
2021. May 2021, sorry.
Oh, okay.
And so just kind of the timelines get messed up, mom brain, but the George Floyd happened.
Oh, yeah. The summer of love.
Yes, and that was one of the big things that I said, okay, so they will, in fact, stage events and get an agenda out of it. So what else will they? And you go back and you kind of realize, wait, Obama kind of started the war on cops, and Obama kind of started BLM, which was made to conquer and divide, or divide and conquer, excuse me. And again, it all just kind of starts spilling in front of you, and you realize it's almost like it's a stage.
It is indeed. And all the folks, whether they're news anchors or high-ranking, and I mean high-ranking politicians, or the Elon Musks or the Bill Gates, I've come to believe that these are actors on the world stage who have been given very
100%.
very convenient stories about their backgrounds.
100% believe it. And when you, for me also so with George Floyd, and then there was another event, a lot of the Summer 11 in itself, fiery but peaceful protests. When if you protested stuff from the other side, you were automatically called something. You see the narrative spill more and more with the COVID vaccine and anti-vaxxers and this and that. And at the same time, this is happening where the more people say, don't do this, don't say this, don't believe this, the more a lot of people want to say and believe those things. So you start digging more and more. A big one for me was all vaccine.
That's right. And as far as that goes, the big eye-opener for me was a book by Eustace Mullins called Murder by Injection. That really opened my eyes.
Mm-hmm. I haven't read that one, actually, but I would love to look it up. But that was a big one for me, was learning about with the COVID vaccine. I started looking up because, people started with the anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
They call everyone the anti-vaxxer. And when they start with the little nicknames for everyone, and that's what kind of brought me to Flat Earth was, wait a minute, they kind of do it to Flat Earthers too now.
Right. Yep.
So could there be something to look into there? And that's really when I forget what they call it. There's a name for it. They call it the Agent Smith effect.
Yep.
Where if you bring up a topic and the most people are kind of trained to just shut down and say, nope, do not pass, the end, we're not doing it.
100%.
And that's one of those topics that does that to people.
Yep. And you made a great point. Again, if you spoke bad against the vaccine up until very recently, because now you can see across the board there is a lot of vaccine regret, but if you spoke against the jab, you were an anti-vaxxer. If you didn't bow at the altar of BLM, you were a racist. And if you were a Trump supporter, you were a white racist, or you were a MAGA racist. And even to this day, I think it's just ridiculous how Biden, I saw on social media just within the last 24 hours, still dragging the racist. And that's all, over the last few years, I've come to believe that politics, the two-party system was mainly put in place, again, to divide and conquer, to keep us separated. Yes. All the while, it's really, it's a war against the poor. They're trying to get they're trying to step on the middle class and get them all the way down with a hyperinflation. And the way they're just funneling money through Ukraine, and even the most how do you do type of people who don't even follow these type of things are very upset seeing people struggle. Their friends, their relatives, their neighbors struggle to make it to the next paycheck. And you see our own department, Janet Yellen, the Fed treasurer, she shows up in Ukraine talking about, we'll do whatever it takes. Meanwhile, they
gave them another $1.25 billion yesterday.
Yep, and she promised, and when she was in Kiev yesterday or the day before, we'll just whatever it takes. And it's really sad to see here. Anytime I go into town, there's just homeless people everywhere, and we can't fix our own problems. But
it truly is unreal. It truly is, and absolutely, you can see it that it is just all a game for them.
Yes,
it's
it is
to keep us poor, confused, dumb, sick, reliant, all of the above. Need to be able to control us. Overpopulation is one of the huge lies. We're nowhere near overpopulated. This earth was made to be populated, and they just don't want more population because they already are outnumbered so much. They can't control us, and that's why they needed to kill off a third of the population at once.
Yep, and anyone who's been on an airplane before knows there's plenty of land in the United States out there that hasn't even been touched yet.
Yeah, I mean, and there's all these things out there. If you don't sit there and do the math by yourself, who knows? But I've heard people say and quote this before that there's enough land in Texas alone that the entire world population could have half an acre of land each.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's like a quarter acre, half an acre, something like that. It's ridiculous the way
and even if that's not exactly true, it still puts into perspective that we are nowhere near overpopulated. They
Precisely.
Just want as little of us as possible.
100%. Outstanding. So at this point, your mind is blown. You've been well read on 9/11. You haven't got to flat Earth yet, but you start to see the lies about the vaccines, and then continue on with your journey.
Next was child trafficking.
That's
when I started to learn about child trafficking was when it truly all changed for me, and that was something else. Take him or leave him, but Trump's the only president in history to fight it, and him fighting it and talking about it was something that made, that doesn't really happen. Is that really that big? And you start to look it up and you start to learn about tunnels. And I don't know if you've ever watched there's the series, The Fall of the Cabal.
Yes. Yeah. I saw that a couple years ago, that the lady from Europe who's kind of doing the voiceover on it. Very well done.
Yes, and I think she's in the process of doing a whole second one. I haven't ever started it. But that was a huge, huge eye opener. I remember we were locked down doing nothing because we're both restaurant workers. So we were sitting at home out of work. I would be up till 4, 5, 6 in the morning. I'd go for runs at these hours, just unable to sleep. And it wasn't like I was depressed, but I was just shook. And I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. And the only coping mechanism was to find out more and more and more and more.
Yeah, and I think that is for most people when they come across information like this, and this, again, it goes back to the movie, not to use it as a lame reference, but you literally either, and it's like I was saying last night with Case, and we were saying you can't really force someone to wake up. It has to be the right time for them. And we were all asleep, all of us, at some point of our lives. But once you decide to say, you know what, I think I need to, quote unquote, take the red pill and really look into this, there is no going back. And then you really begin to realize,
even if it happens to you by accident, there's no going back.
Exactly. Once you choose to look at it and continue on, and realize that this is not fiction, and it's really a punch in the gut sometimes when you realize how evil this world really is.
Yes. And evil is the only word, and that's exactly what will bring you full circle to the flat earth, is when you realize it's all based in evil, and then you kind of say, well, wait, it does seem like they've wanted to remove God from everything for the last century or more, and you kind of start thinking, and yep, it does make sense that God created this world. And then you start thinking more and more. And I don't know if you've ever seen The Lost History of the Flat Earth, but when I watched that 5-hour documentary, I don't even think I looked up once. I was glued, jaw on the floor for the entire 5 hours.
That guy's got the greatest voice.
I mean it seriously, and it's just you can't watch it and say, oh, this was fun, but sure, never going to think of it again because it makes way too much sense.
Yep. And then when you start to look at the numerology involved with heliocentrism and the people behind it,
Yes.
and the history itself from 1900, the fact that the boat was used to go down to Antarctica was the USS Nimrod, and of course, Nimrod had a little something to do with the Tower of Babel, Operation High Jump, and then all of a sudden NASA appears and we're shooting rockets, or missiles trying to break through the firmament. And all of a sudden,
Yep.
Kennedy's like, "Oh, we're going to the moon," and everybody's like, "Okay, sure, why not?"
And you had the admiral on TV saying that you could not go to the moon. Just a couple years before that, the moon's plasma and some of the science experiments they have on YouTube and Rumble and stuff. The experiments they do with a plasma disc to show the moon phases. I mean, it's more scientific than anything they've ever showed us. Pictures in a textbook saying this is space when it's just an image.
That's right. Before we delve completely into flat Earth, I'm a little intrigued, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. But when you did the Fall of the Cabal and these type of things, I don't know how deep you dug into that, because for me, that's something that I've stayed on the surface because it makes me very upset, and I want to become a vigilante like Batman and just start bopping people over the head because it's just the worst. God says anybody who should harm a child should have a millstone put around their neck and basically dropped in the ocean. It gets me very upset.
Accurate.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard, and some people really don't understand it. My husband, he's awake. He fully understands that the world is, a trick on us. He's awake politically a little bit with stuff further, vaccines, medicine, not so much flat Earth, but he'll listen to me. He'll hear me out. But I forget where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
No worries. We were just kind of, I guess what I wanted to get to, when you were doing your research into the trafficking, were there individuals or organizations that were behind this that you kind of came across? Or was it just an elite issue?
So a lot of it was centered around Epstein Island, a lot of the Clinton family stuff. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the movie out there that supposedly exists, Frazzle Drip.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
They say that there's ways to see it. I would never in a million years even bring myself, but I've heard what that is. So some of the stuff is really tangled, and it has been a while since I've been in that rabbit hole, but there's something with Wayfair where they would sell kids through Wayfair in furniture and crazy stuff like that. But the tunnels is the big one. And there's one episode where they talk about how some of these people have been in tunnels, these kids, for so long that just daylight will kill them. Even if they're saved, daylight kills them. It's just, that's the life from when they're born, they're put into it, they're sold into it, they're bred for it. It goes so much deeper than people know it is. And it's so many millions more than, and there's busts going on in the country, hundreds at a time on an almost daily basis at this point.
Yeah, there were two things that come to mind when you mentioned that. Number one, somebody had sent me a link. My goodness, it's probably been 2 years now. I can't even keep track of time anymore, but somebody sent me a link to a Wayfair. It was like a sofa or a chest or something for like $30,000. So I guess that's the way they were selling these things, and you had to really know how to do the search. And it became public knowledge. And, of course, I think it actually, for a minute, made mainstream TV for just a minute. And, of course, Wayfair denied it, and it kind of got swept under the rug. The other thing was, my goodness, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I was kind of awake back in the day. But if you remember the earthquake in Haiti in, I want to say 2010, and it was very quickly, within a day or so, the Clinton Foundation stepped in to go down there. And apparently they were involved that way with a lot of the young Haitian children that had been orphaned.
Yes, so I don't remember that at the time of it happening, but I remember reading about that at some point in all of this. And a lot of the Clinton stuff revolves around Haiti. All tangled very deep, and it's all very messed up and sad and hard to read. But at the same time, it's just figuring it out is just the only way, in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So let me ask you this. You're young. You're 32. You have a young child. Compared to the Megan of, say, 2019 to the Megan of today, how does that affect you as a parent? Because I know it's really changed me, and we've made some really drastic changes in our life.
Holy crap. I mean, I could burst into tears just right now saying I thank God every single day that we did not have him until I was awake to this, because he would be on the fully vaccinated schedule. He would be lined up for public education. I mean, some of the choices that we've made, and he's only 2, and you can already see some of the benefits. We don't do daycare. I stay home with him. We don't do medicine almost whatsoever, and he is one of the healthiest children I've ever seen. We thank God every day that the 2019 version of Megan and Dan, that's my husband's name. We're very glad that we had him when we did.
That's awesome. That's really a blessing. And again, I've continued to say for the last several years that they overplayed their hand just a bit with the COVID thing. And again, we can't, point and shake our fingers at those who chose to get vaccinated, because I've had family members who did as well, and it's sad to me. And there's a lot of folks and friends I have that have.
They're not bad people for thinking that they should trust the people who
not.
say they care about us, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't get, is they think that we might be sitting here laughing or sitting here like, oh, you deserved it. No, that's not the case at all. It's very unfortunate that we couldn't trust the people that were told, yeah, we can run a country, we can control public health, we can take care of you. And they did the opposite.
And this current administration, I think, has opened a lot of people up. I mean, you have a train with chemicals that overturns, and they turn their back on them. And now there's all kinds of reports within the last 24 hours. People are getting very sick, very, very sick. And there was certainly lawyers on ground very quickly, because I spent 4 hours Googling all the local businesses, and no one would talk to me except for one lady, and she spoke to me for like 90 seconds. So a lot of browbeating, a lot of bullying, because they're a very low income town, and it's a shame that they were basically handing them $1,000 and making them sign a non-disclosure agreement. And it's just.
I saw about all that. That was very strange. But the whole thing is very strange to me. The whole Ohio thing is very strange to me. And at first, I honestly wasn't even buying it, because I couldn't find a single person from there that could even. I have a friend who lives 70 miles away who had virtually no clue what I was talking about. He's like, "What are you talking about? My water's fine. Are you okay?" So at first. But then, then more and more people, and I read through the comments on some of the, and, people from there are commenting, you see more videos. So obviously something did happen, and, now it's just a matter of who planned it and why. But
exactly.
I mean, they themselves have already said it was no accident. So whatever it is they're doing, the fact that it'll harm the public and they want to just cover it up or ignore it, or, people on The View want to say, well, they deserved it because they're Republicans. It's terrible.
It is awful that our fellow Americans think of us like that. And again, it's they want you to believe that it's a race war, that it's Democrats versus Republicans, and they'll divide us any way they can. But at the end of the day, it is a class war. And COVID did bring about the greatest financial transfer of wealth in the history. So the elites have even furthered themselves farther from us than ever before. And now they're looking
100%.
They're looking to put the nail in the coffin. They want to do away with anybody who does not go along with their program, and that will happen. UK announced it today that they will be making. There's going to be a transfer. Cash will disappear in our lifetime, and probably before 2030. And when that happens, when you go against, you're going to lose your privileges. They're going to shut you down, just like they did when you spoke bad about the vaccine, and they deleted my YouTube channel. They shut down my PayPal. That's just a very small showing of what they're going to do to us in the coming years.
It really is some of the craziest stuff, and so much of it is World War II. It's Nazi stuff, but it's done a little bit differently, and it shocks me to the core that some people still do not see what they are doing. and they still sit here and believe what's coming out of their mouth. And, oh, well, they want to help us. You know, they're going to tax the 1%. No, they're not. They are the 1%. No, they're not.
Well, the problem...
they believe...
Sorry, go ahead.
It's just, it's crazy to me that they're still, and seeing what's going on and seeing what you just said, the transfer to the cashless society. If you don't realize by now what a cashless society means, I don't think you're paying any attention. That's a scary thing. And if they're already announcing it in the UK, I didn't know that they announced that. I did not think that would actually happen.
Yeah, it's without a doubt it's coming.
You know, and something else is we signed over our pandemic sovereignty to the WHO the other day. So that was another thing that makes me feel like that's a way that they're going to take away even more rights for the next planned pandemic than they got to this time.
And that's got to be the first time. I mean, I know we deal with the UN and NATO, but we don't vote for anybody in the World Health Organization. And the fact that they gave these people powers over us, and again, they get to make the rules. If they say there's 1,000 cases of flu, then that's a pandemic. Well, then they can, by the end of October, they could start declaring martial law and doing these extreme measures against us. All of this is a march towards a one world government, which the Bible warns us about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's all prophesied in the Bible, all of this, the exact world that we live in today.
Yep. Everything that's bad will be looked at as good, and everything that's good will be looked at as bad. And it's a bizarro world is what I call it. So go ahead and continue with your journey after you've kind of delved through the horrible things that is child trafficking.
Yeah, I mean, so pretty much with that, around going through all that and just, really dealing with, okay, our entire world as we know it is a lie. This is all staged. What's the end goal here? And then the 2020 election. So yeah, we didn't have Stephen by that point. I'm pregnant by that point. So the 2020 election, and we're sitting there glued to the TV, and I'm like, there's no way they cannot steal a United States election. Hilarious, because they've been doing it for years. Now I know. But at the time, they cannot steal a United States election. It'll never happen, never fear, and it happens in front of our eyes. Could not believe it. The inauguration, and, I don't know if you're familiar with the QAnon, but there was this whole, big QAnon thing where people thought they were going to storm the inauguration, and I totally was like, let's do it. Let's get the military in. Let's tell them no. Cried through the inauguration. I can't believe we're doing it. And that was a big one for me, was they just stole an election. We all know they stole it, and no one's stopping them.
Yep. Absolutely. That was basically, I think it was a corporate takeover, basically. We have BlackRock and Vanguard. We have very few elite companies that own 96% of the media. They own a large portion of, if you look at any of the conglomerates like GE, any big
even that
corporation.
was a mini rabbit hole in itself, was the BlackRock and Vanguard thing.
And when I did that podcast, I got an email from PayPal within 24 hours, and they said I was shut down.
Wow.
That was eye-opening to me. I did that on my Fact Hunter podcast, a year and a half ago, and I still have the email from they said, get our logos, because I used to accept donations. I had a little PayPal link. They said, get our PayPal logos off your website. And they even shut down my personal. I had a PayPal personal line of credit, which I used for eBay because I get ham radio stuff, etc. They shut it all down. I cannot do business with PayPal whatsoever.
That is wild. And and so, someone like me who has 40 followers getting shadow banned and getting censored on Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And I'm like, no one's even reading my post. So obviously it's just, you say the word and you're not allowed to say the word. So you're off.
Yeah. I'm afraid that the artificial intelligence that's in these, whether it be Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I think it's a lot more advanced than what people think.
I would 100% believe that. I don't know if you're fully subscribed to everything that was in that whole Lost History documentary, but there's a big segment about how there's so much advanced technology. And I think that we kind of all know that, but that they had it centuries ago, built the world with it. Because if you think about it, so much of the world's the arches, the huge infrastructures were all built before the first power tool. It doesn't really make much sense.
Right.
But so they had all that advanced technology and then destroyed it, hid it from us, whatever it is they did with it. So of course they can act like they've invented, we've made this AI, but it light years ahead of what we even could fathom.
Sure. If you look at the chapels in Western Europe, if you look at all the ancient architecture around the world that was done before, like you said, power tools and everything, it's quite obvious
before excavation.
Absolutely. The pyramids, everything. It's obvious that there's obviously the biggest one for me is that they're hiding free energy. And I think that's something, again, we talk about how Nikola Tesla was kind of just plagiarized and brushed under the carpet and other people stole his works. They profited off of some, and other things like free energy, they kind of hid because they need us to work. They need us to need money because otherwise we're going to sit around and have these conversations and say, wait a second, why did they just send $1.2 billion to Ukraine when my neighbors just had their car towed away and my other neighbors being foreclosed on? So they want us busy and working 60 hours a week so we don't think about these type of things.
Mm-hmm. Free energy is the missing puzzle piece to the whole thing. It's why endless wars. It's why countries have to be against each other, fighting over money, resources. We have unlimited resources. We have everything we need to survive.
Yep, spot on. Whereabouts was Flat Earth your last big red pill, or was that just one? Did you continue to? I mean, we're always learning, but how did that change your life? For me, that was a whole nother. Man, it was next level when I finally accepted that. My goodness, that we really, really have been lied to.
Yes, completely changed my life. I mean, and in the best ways, my outlook is just entirely different on life. Mainly giving up on the subscription to you're not an important part of society if you don't work a 9 to 5, have a savings, have a 401k. Life is about family, love, friends. I mean, that's all that matters. We're here for purpose. I think that's one of the biggest things that it comes down to is that we do matter. We're not just an accidental, oops, something exploded in space and now you all exist but don't really mean anything. That's just absolutely the opposite. And it makes you see how the people that are asleep live the zombie life and don't see life for what it is. And it makes you sad, but it also makes you very happy.
For me, I was very stubborn, even though I considered myself fully awake. Was it someone, a friend, or did it just pop up in your algorithm? How did you decide to even take a moment and look at Flat Earth?
So I would talk to my good friend Callie about a lot of this. We started talking about Trump. We started talking about because she's from New Hampshire, so we hadn't really spoken since high school, and now this is 15 or so years later. We would start talking about BLM, the riots, the election, stuff like that. And then we started getting to talking about God because with the whole, the trafficking, the rituals, the satanic rituals, and realizing that this is all to cancel God and to take over and create a demonic world or a hell on earth even. So we would talk about God a lot in the Bible. And for me, I've always kind of, I guess, believed in God, if you want to say, but never had like a close connection, did not pray daily or stuff like that. But I've always believed in God. But when you become connected, for me, it was like, okay, God created the world, but in my head, I still saw that world as a globe. He just created the globe. That's what it is. And so she would start telling me, you should look into like flat earth. It really makes a lot more sense. There's a firmament over the earth and it's all in the Bible. I've been reading the Bible, and she, not pushy, but just letting me know. And I think I forget the exact way she put it, but we were talking about slavery one day, and we were talking about the whole thing they do with slavery, how they act like African Americans are the only people that have ever been enslaved, and that there wasn't white Europeans, Irish slaves throughout history. We're talking about that and talking about the 3 things that you need to run a successful, to have a successful slavery is to not allow them to be educated. Obviously, they can't do that to the public or we would know. So they own the education and they teach you what they want to be
Correct.
The truth.
Yeah. And
they keep you on a plantation. And when she said this to me, she said, the globe is the plantation. there's endless resources. There's more land and there's endless resources, but the globe is the plantation that we can't get off of. And that's how they say it's going to end. There's endless. And it just kind of hit me. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's some truth to this. So I went on YouTube and started looking, and the censorship is what did it.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you go to YouTube and you type in flat Earth, you'll get videos of debunking flat Earth, and you'll get a Neil deGrasse Tyson video, and you'll get a air quotes, "This guy, Professor Dave, humiliates flat Earth Dave," and all these other videos. You won't get a genuine flat Earth video. And of course, all the elites, they'll refer you to the Flat Earth Society website, which is, as most flat earthers know, is controlled opposition. They make flat Earth look so ridiculous that anybody who even goes out of their comfort zone and says, well, I guess I'll look at it, and they go to that website, they're like, oh, this is stupid, and they never bother to go back and look.
So it's funny because me and that same girl, Callie, we follow the Flat Earth Society on Telegram, and we know what it is, but they do post some interesting stuff once in a while, but we've both been completely banned from commenting by saying very simple, unoffensive things. Yes, I think she said that God was real once and got banned, and then I remember commenting about how we shouldn't fall for the division, and we shouldn't fall for the I think it was the Trump DeSantis thing that everyone was getting on. We should just probably ignore it, like not let it divide us. And I got banned from commenting for that. So that was when I'm like, okay, they're definitely not real at all.
Wow. So she got banned for saying God is real?
When you go on YouTube, it really like, it shows you cartoons of a flat thing floating in space and like water falling off the edge.
Correct. Yeah.
And then it has these little captions on the bottom that say, flat Earth, and it has the fact check. And so after COVID, fact check in my head means this is true.
Yep.
So, I mean, it really just kind of started. I remember we had Steven at this point. He's probably 2 months old. So he's, sleeping, awake for a little bit, sleeping more. So I spent probably 10 hours of the day pausing and restarting when I had time, and just dove in, and I was sold. It didn't take me more than probably 20 minutes into the thing to say, okay, this is worth paying attention to. And it just, like I said, it made too much sense, and you can't unsee it now.
Was there a particular piece of evidence that you saw, whether it be Antarctica or water always finding its level? Was there something that was said either on a YouTube video or something that you read that really resonated with you, that made you think, yeah, this planet or this globe thing is a lie?
Yes. So because a lot of it was based on fact checks, they don't want you to believe it. So that leads me to believe. But the big actual pieces of evidence, the Atlantic Treaty that, 62 or 72 nations signed?
Yeah, back in 1958?
Yes. Yeah, so that was a big one. And then it was when they show videos on the beach, and they show the whole, what's his name? Bill Nye, the science guy. His whole explanation of the globe is you see the boat go over the horizon, and that's how you know it's a globe. And so now these people go to the beach and they watch the ship go, and then they grab their 90 times zoom camera and they zoom in and bring it back into clear focus with plenty of ocean behind it.
Yeah, that P900, P1000s are game changers. That really opened a lot of people's eyes.
Is it 900, not 90?
Oh no, I think it's 90. That's just the model numbers. I think Nikon P900.
That's what they all do it with. But yeah, and I've seen a ton of those. And the first time I watched that, as it's zooming in, and I'm like, there's no way. I chills. I was so blown away by it. And then they can do it with the sun setting over the horizon. You can pull the sun back in. It's right in our faces, and we're able to find it and see it. And there's things you can see in everyday life. I mean, this is one that some people say doesn't prove it, but there's so many days that you can see the sun and the moon at the same time.
Absolutely. Specifically in the morning here.
I have one group of friends that I talk to about this stuff, and I sent them a picture of it. And this one girl, that doesn't mean anything. You're being really silly. That just happens once in a while. So I sent her 14 days in a row. I said, is it ever going to be day or night in Australia, though?
Yeah, we have friends in Australia too. I always ask them, "Is that blood rushing to your head down there? Are you okay upside down?"
Right. And I mean, people go to NASA, whatever it is, seminars, or, and they'll ask them, how come you won't, just do a live of going around and just showing the perspective of we're facing one way, and then go all the way around and show the people upside down. All you have to do is do it once and you'll shut us all up forever.
Yep.
But they won't, because they can't.
No. And, Bart Sabrell being on last week, I've had him on before and I've seen the videos before. But when you have an astronaut, when you hear an astronaut threaten to call the CIA and have you killed, if you went to the moon, why would you even think of such a thing?
Seriously.
My goodness. And for me, I think, I had never really, before I started to look into the flat earth, I never really paid attention to the press conference they held after they returned from the moon. And it looked like they were just at a family member's funeral. They weren't, I would be celebrating. I would have shoe endorsements. I would be doing Gatorade commercials. And these guys were just in a very foul, sad mood. And that just really was very obvious to me that they were lying.
I agree. I've seen that one. And there's also where they give different answers to if you can see the stars in space. Some of them say it's completely black, you can't. And then some of them will say, the millions of stars we saw.
Yep. What does flat earth mean to you now? I know you mentioned it brought you closer to God, as it did for me. Have you ventured out and started talking to maybe extended family members and very close friends about this, and how have they received that?
I definitely tiptoe, because a lot of the people in my life are asleep. Went to a very liberal college, so a lot of my friends, most of which I don't talk to anymore, we're asleep. My sister is one of the most fast asleep people, so I have brought it up to her. But when I bring up stuff like this, I do it in kind of like a backdoor way, and my friend brought this up to me, pretty crazy, huh? But here's why it's a little interesting, and I kind of act like I'm on her side, just so she'll not have an emotional response to it.
Right,
and
right.
But she pretty much did, and just shut down. That's crazy. What are even scientists for, right? And that's pretty much, if you're closed off to that point, I'm not really going to bother. But my husband, he's not like that, and so I'll talk to him about it. And he's kind of back and forth. He wouldn't be shocked, but I think it's kind of a lot to sit down and accept. But some of the times we get into the conversation, he'll agree. It makes a lot of sense. It's interesting to talk about. And other than that, I really only talk about it with my two other friends that are on the same page with me, that kind of woke up around the same time, or like alongside me, with me, helping each other out with it. I don't try to bring it up, because people just look at you like you're nuts. And if they don't want to know, no matter what you say, you're going to sound crazy. If they don't want to know, you could say, "Hey, Elon Musk just sent me a picture from space of the flat Earth," and they'd be like, "Well, no, that's okay though."
They say it's easier. What's the phrase? It's easier to lie to someone than to convince them they've been lied to. Isn't that really the truth?
Yes, 100%. They won't even process the information you're saying if they don't want to know, or if they kind of have that mechanism up. I know a friend of mine, I've talked quite a few times about medicine and vaccines too, and anytime it comes up, it's just like we've never had the conversations, and it's like it's slipping past you, because you can't. It's hard to put it into words, but it's just like it makes them shut down, so they don't hear you. They just kind of nod politely, and then that's it.
Yeah. It's actually, I've gifted the app. I just told a couple friends and family members who I knew who would be kind of open to at least checking it out. And I don't know if you have ever checked out David Weiss's app, the Flat Earth app. I've gifted it a few times, and it really resonated with them, because every day they get their little message, and it's a little 2-minute video. With two people, it resonated with them. With one, I think it got deleted within the first couple hours. I was wrong. But I found that to be a very effective tool to send to folks. And it's, for $3, it's not a big loss. I think it was
maybe I'll have to try that one for my husband. I had his sister come over one day and she watched just a shorter documentary with me. I don't know if you've ever watched Hibbler Productions on YouTube.
I think he just mentioned the guy last night. Kaysen, who was on with me last night. He actually mentioned that. I've subscribed to it. I need to go check it out. I think he does a show. Is that the guy who does a show every single day?
If he does a podcast, that's not. I've seen his YouTube
Hibbler.
videos.
He's the guy who's doing the new Level movie.
Document.
I'm sorry, he's doing the new Level movie. That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
So the first Level movie, that was one of the first things I saw after Flat Earth, and that's after the lost history of the Flat Earth, and that's the one that I had my sister-in-law watch with me, and she kind of the same reaction as him is like, okay, this is very interesting. I'm not going to really go further on my own, but cool. So, I mean, I'll take it. If you don't act like I'm crazy, I'll take it. But it just seems like if you're not seeking it out, it seems like people just, and it blows my mind because I never sought it out. But now I'm like, how can you not want to know? How can you not care?
Absolutely. Especially, again, after the last couple years. And, I've heard from many people that they're going to try to pull this again in 2025, 2026, something called SPORES or SPARS. Do you really think they could pull something like that off again in the next decade, or do you think they've completely burned the virus bridge?
I definitely think they've burned it, and I hope so. I mean, I feel like they've done a few small attempts since COVID. Like they did like a little monkeypox thing for a minute, and they had all these
Omicron
variants, and I feel like a lot of people have stopped listening, and then also now they're openly saying that what do you call it? Natural immunity is actually stronger than the vaccine. So,
right.
I mean, Lord help anyone who falls for it again if they try again.
Yeah, agreed. Especially in this lifetime.
Because I think everyone can say now, hey, maybe we see about the natural immunity this time. Maybe we see, and the whole thing of if you have to get tested to know you have it, how sick are you?
I remember saying that if you need a test to find out if you're sick, you're probably not sick.
You're not that sick. Exactly. And it really does blow my mind. And if they try it again, I mean, I cannot imagine people putting up with it, but I am surprised that people put up with what we're seeing today. So,
when I was doing radio last year and the year before, 21 and 22, I would open up many of my radio shows with doing the earnings call for Pfizer. If I remember correctly, in some quarters, they were pulling in, after their expenses, they were netting $40 billion a quarter. That was after they paid their employees, paid their bills. And it's just, the thing that gets me the most is that not one of these people, and I know that I've said this, I've beaten this drum 1,000 times, but nobody's ever going to be held accountable.
Right. It's very true. Nobody's going to be held accountable for it, and they don't care. They do it right in our faces.
Yep. They do it right in our faces. They killed Kennedy. They lied about going to the moon, and they can, if you're a young child, 10, 11, 12, and you continue to get away with lying and your parents never do anything about it, you're just going to continue to do it. But back in my day, I got snatched up and spanked. I was like, geez, I'm not doing that again. And it goes the same for what's going on now with these people in D.C. and wherever they get their marching orders from, whether it be the Vatican, Jerusalem, United Kingdom, London, wherever they get their orders from, until good strong men step up and put an end to this. I think we're at a very, and again, I'm not, I don't want to get kicked off of the internet. I'm not saying that we need to do anything drastic. I'm just saying that I think we are I'm trying to be very careful here. The actions we take of this current generation will resonate for generations to come. I think it'll have effects on our children and our grandchildren and their children. My wife and I are
100%, and we need them to, and the time is now or it's too late.
Yep.
We need things to change, or we won't leave them a sane world, a sustainable world.
Yeah. And, the sad thing is there have been, you don't hear about it, but there have been good men who have tried to stand up to the government. But the fact is they get infiltrated. They get arrested on false charges, just like our friend Jeremy Brown. They can do so much because they control the media. They can show up to your door, arrest you, and feed a story to the news that, you had 100 pounds of fentanyl in your garage or something, and nobody would think twice about it. Oh, what a piece of crap! Send them to jail, and you're gone. you're
right.
You're just gone. So it is.
Yep, the amount of crimes that they can commit and live their lives.
Yeah, I guess that's what sets them apart between them and us. Is we have a conscience, and the people in these positions of power are just absolute psychopaths.
Absolutely. Sick psychopaths. And not even people, good men in political ways or just in, fighting physical ways. But there are musicians over however long who have spoken out or attempted to speak out or talked about, I'm going to speak out. And this is more toward the trafficking and stuff like that. But they all magically killed themselves.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of them. Avicii, who was the guy, the drummer, Travis Barker, I think. They were all writing a book together. Mac Miller, they all killed themselves.
Yeah, and the guy, I didn't follow the industrial music of the 2000s, but what is his name? The guy who was supposedly related to Podesta, Chester Bennington, and Chris Cornell, I think those two guys.
Podesta's son.
Yeah. Those two guys were I had heard they were making a documentary about child trafficking, and of course,
yes, he killed himself too.
Yep.
So definitely, there are people that have tried. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what Kanye's out there trying to tell us something, but I think he's doing a little too much too fast. But he's going to get himself in trouble. It's just if you try to help, you get stopped.
Yeah, and he didn't help himself by showing up on Alex Jones's show and wearing a white mask and ranting. But either way, they will figure out a way to belittle you, even though he was trying to preach the truth. But did he disappear? I haven't even heard from him since that incident. Is he still around?
I was just saying it the other day. I haven't really heard much from Kanye.
Yeah, it's sad. And again, that guy... whether or not maybe he too is a pawn on the stage meant to distract us, but if he is a guy trying to spread the truth, well, then he certainly lost a lot of money doing so.
100%. And that's something that's good about being awake is that everyone you see and everything they say, you take with a grain of salt and say, you never know if there's an intention here. So it could be interesting. It could be true. Go research it. But everything with a grain of salt, and also, especially with all the train stuff, the Ukraine stuff. I remember when the Ukraine war started, and you got to wait 40 hours because don't freak out that everyone's at war, and then turned out they were showing video games on the news.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. That one was another big one for me with the whole world stage thing was when they actually got caught showing video games, claiming it was bombings in Ukraine.
Yeah, you never know what's staged and what's real. I've seen a lot of stuff on Telegram. I'd be hard pressed to say that there isn't some terrible stuff going on there. That's for sure. I was going to get to something. I've lost my train of thought too. Was there anything that you wanted to add as far as the flat Earth goes? What it means to you? Maybe point folks to certain channels or documentaries that they should take a look at. Maybe because I don't ever assume that every single person who listens to this podcast is bought into flat Earth, because I got an email today about my stats from this podcast, and I happened to see the reviews, and there's a bunch of 1-star. This guy thinks the Earth is flat. I'm like, why do you think that the title of the podcast is The Flat Earth Files, Guy? But
and why even take the time to write the review? If you don't care, you don't care. Don't listen.
Exactly. I'm not into fashion, so I'm not going to go to a fashion podcast and say, this is the worst. Fashion is stupid.
Exactly. Oh, it's ridiculous. And sometimes you got to wonder, is it bots that are just, out there to put bad reviews on stuff like that, or are there real people with that little time on their hands?
Yeah, either way, it's completely sad.
But yeah, I would say for sure, the Hibbler Productions, their YouTube channel, they have quite a few documentaries, and a lot of those ones are 45 minutes to an hour, so not too much. They do have a little bit of a cheesy voiceover that turned off one of my friends, so I had to put her to a different video. Some of theirs don't have it, but if you can get over that a little bit, they show a lot of the science experiments with the zooming in on the cameras. They show, there's one where they show a homemade rocket launch, and this rocket launches and then all of a sudden it hits something and it just completely stops.
The Go
and
Fast
it hits
rocket.
the firmament.
Yep, that's
So that one was pretty cool. And if people have 5 hours to kill, the Lost History of Flat Earth is the best one I've seen. It's completely mind blowing, and it kind of gives you a really clear picture of how they got to where they are today with the globe, kind of how they did it, why they did it, and what it would mean if finding out the earth is flat would allow people to find out that energy can be made free and distributed free through water channels.
Yep.
Has a lot to do with why the oceans are salt, they're conductive.
Yep.
And it puts the whole world together for you. And it's a little bit corny, but it feels like it gives purpose. It really makes you understand that we are here for purpose, and living our lives is that purpose. Our purpose isn't to work our lives away and to make sure we have a savings account and buy the fanciest home and the fanciest cars. It's to live our lives, learn, explore, have family.
Yep. And it's a great point you made. The old batteries, the saltwater batteries out there, kind of the same thing, the sun, the moon, and the saltwater.
Yes, and they do experiments too where they will power light bulbs just through. I don't know the exact terms,
Sure.
but they have batteries, they have salt water, and they just have the little connectors, and they'll turn on lights, and then they can do. There's one of the Hibbler videos where they have the flat Earth map, like the Gleason one, I think is the quote unquote official one.
Yep.
And they put a glass dome over it, and they have a light, and they kind of show like how you even get the shape, the semicircle shape, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up. That's one thing that people, when they think of the flat Earth, they say, well, bro, if the Earth is flat, the sun would shine on the entire world at the same time, and it certainly wouldn't. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I need to find that video and push it out there. I really need to get a website so I can put some of these videos out there. But it
explains it really well, and basically is saying, like, sure, if it was really 90 million whatever miles away, maybe
miles,
it would light everything.
But
since it's a local sun, and they pull the flashlight up and down and just show you, if it was so close, it could light up just one country at a time, but it's not that close. It's about here, and it kind of it does perfect day to night transitions, and then for me, one of the biggest ones, and this is the most interesting to me, is the astroglobe. I don't know if that is something that you've looked at or watched anything on, but how the astroglobe predicts day, time, seasons. It was the first clock, and it's based on a flat Earth map. And it's a circle within a circle, and it outlines that there's extra land. So, like, that's kind of where I'm at. And I know everything. You learn something every day. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but I subscribe to the extra land and the long winter thing. So I thought the whole Astroglobe documentary was extremely interesting.
So, do you think there's land beyond Antarctica?
So, yes. And in the theory that I kind of subscribe to, this ice wall, the circle around us, moves. around a larger circle. And so actually the definition of planet is a plane within a larger plane.
Gotcha. So you're talking about the map where there's basically our 7 continents and ice wall, and then there's like, if I remember correctly, was there like 4 other big continents and then another ice wall? Am I on the ball here?
I have seen that one. I've seen that one, but have you ever heard of the moon map?
The one that reflects kind of the Earth?
Yes. So
Yes.
basically the theory goes that the moon is a like an X-ray picture of Earth.
Correct.
And there's a small section of it that is our known globe, and people have tracked flight paths with it. And I'm sure you've seen people take the flat Earth map and say, look, flight paths make sense this way.
Exactly. And
They
of course, the
contrast
famous
same
book.
ones with this moon map, and they found all the continents on it. But then there's a whole other side of the moon, and there's all that other darkness. So is that extra land? And in this theory, it's basically that the ice wall, Antarctica circles our quote unquote globe, and it shifts around, the poles change, and it basically goes around this larger circle. So in 6,000, 8,000 years, our side of the globe would be in complete darkness, kind of like a Game of Thrones long winter type of thing.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So, I mean, like I said, I know that I don't know any of this for a fact, and I don't claim to, but that's the one that I subscribe to, and that's the one that resonated with me. And it's like almost beautiful to watch because it makes perfect sense.
And that's it's pronounced astrolabe, right? Is that the one you're talking about? That's the old school
is that...
instrument?
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha. That is interesting. Do you think, well, if we're talking about this, is there a chance, do you think, in your theory, that maybe the people who control this side of the house are over there?
That I don't even know, and it's so hard to even wrap your head around it. The same friend, Callie, that I mentioned before, who got me into this, we talk about it sometimes, and she kind of believes like extraterrestrial might mean people who do live past the wall, like in the extra land.
Yeah, terra means
obviously
land, and extra terra would mean, extra territory, which would be
yes.
lands we don't know about. We're taught 7 continents, and I do think it's completely plausible that there is other continents out there that we don't know about.
Yes, and so I kind of think I don't necessarily think that there are people over there pulling strings, but maybe that obviously they do know how it all works. And I think at some point this grand plan was started, and when it got to a point where they said, okay, this is the globe now, this is the world now, we're going to pretend the rest of it doesn't exist. Whoever was in control or in charge got rid of whatever technology. There's documentaries about the star forts. That's like a whole nother thing in itself, but how they dismantled the star forts. They got rid of all these canals that were free energy water travel systems.
Yeah, and that, if I remember correctly, my wife follows a guy. Is his name John Levi? Jon Levi, and he covers a lot of the star forts.
I'm not familiar with the name, but I wouldn't be surprised if I came across him, because star forts were one that I spent a couple of days just really I was looking them up on Google Earth, finding out as much as I could. Those were really, really cool, and just the backstory they give you on those is incredibly ridiculous. They are so precise and perfect and geometrical, and They were just not built without technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you would know John Levi because he has a very slow, monotone voice.
I would maybe he got skipped for a different one.
Yeah, check him out, Jon Levi. He talks about my wife watches him. He puts me to sleep, but and I don't mean that disrespectfully. He's got a lot of cool videos. It's just he's very monotone, but he does.
Some people can't do the slow voice.
Yeah, I have to put him on 1.5 speed when I listen to him. But he does some great information on the star forts. But he also dabbles a little bit into Tartaria, which my wife kind of dabbles in as well.
Yes, that is what my friend is big in, and she's told me a lot. And I know that it has to do with 4 continents around the North Pole that exist, but they don't tell us about. I'm not super familiar, but I do know it is very interesting. It's so much sometimes. And it's like you want to dive in, but then you start doing it and you're all over the place. And
yeah, there's so many things that they lie about it. They lie to us about everything. And if you were to go down every rabbit hole, you would just 24/7, 365, and you still wouldn't have touched, 10% of the lies that they've portrayed upon us.
And the more you know, the more you see it absolutely everywhere. I was just watching, my son found the Space Jam DVD, so we've been watching Space Jam, and there's a line where Bugs Bunny is joking around and says, hey, maybe there really isn't any intelligent life anywhere else in the universe, and then winks. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's everywhere. They tell us everywhere.
Was that the original one with Michael Jordan?
Yes.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yep, and he winks at the camera, and I'm just like, there's no way that wasn't intentional. And it's just, you see it and start to notice it everywhere. What was the song? There's a Chili Peppers song.
Oh yeah.
It's Californication, and they say about the flat Earth in it.
Yeah, they say something, but it's space is the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
Yes, I heard that, and I just wait. Did they just say what I think they said? But
Yep.
You would have never. I mean, I listened to that song in middle school, grade school, and never once clicked with me.
Yep.
I mean, the entire song doesn't click with you when you're at that age, but
the signs are everywhere. Manly P. Hall said when man finally can see the signs and the symbols, a great veil will fall upon mankind, and there is a bit of a great awakening going on, and a lot of it is. I don't like to say thanks to COVID because they overplayed it, but there has been a bit of an awakening because of the evil people have overplayed their hand, and people are finally waiting to say, wait a second, this is a little bit too obvious for even me to give it a pass.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely, and I think that a lot more people than we even realize in our everyday lives are awake, maybe not to everything, maybe not to the full extent, but more awake than we think. And one thing that I notice a lot of is if I'm just sitting on maybe Facebook or Instagram and I'll see whether it's Fox News or whatever news or someone prominent posting something about space or NASA, I see a lot of comments like, no, space isn't real, flat Earth, or talking about, whatever it is their comment is, but I see more and more and more. I'm like, well, it's really interesting that on a Fox, it's not like it's on some rabbit hole page that I'm following. It's on a Fox News post or on, like a podcaster that I'd be surprised people are disagreeing with or something like that. And I see a lot more of it every single day, and it makes me happy to see how many people are starting to realize.
Yeah, me too. And I enjoy, especially like you said, when Twitter posts or like NASA will post something on Twitter or Instagram. And like you said, you go to the comments. I am too shocked to see that a lot of people are like, yeah, whatever. The two posts that I put out that really blew people away. One was JPL, and it kills me. They still have this post up to date. It was October of 2012, and I want to say it was like the rover mission, something on Mars back in 2012, and they it supposedly took a picture and sent it back, and if you look on the bottom left-hand side, there's a rat or some kind of possum or something right on it. And the other one is the Greenland picture, and when they tried to say that was Mars, and then somebody took Devon Island and Greenland and matched it right up to it, and everything is completely the same. That woke a lot of people up.
Yes, I
as
do
well.
remember the Devon Island thing.
Yep. And Greenland, and obviously there's a lot of people involved in this that knows. I mean, somebody, maybe they just took the picture off the internet and tinted it, but it just kind of surprises me that nobody's had the courage to try to be a whistleblower. Now, maybe there have been, and maybe these poor people get snuffed out and we never hear about it. But I mean,
right. There is so much, some of the documentaries just simply highlight NASA clips where there's obvious glitches and you can tell they're using green screen technology.
Yep.
Or you can tell that they're faking gravity or the hairsprayed hair or whatever it is. And there's even NASA documents that are available to the public. There's something like I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's well over 100 documents available to the public and they're just simple things. How does an airplane work? How does this craft work? But that state right on them over a flat, non-rotating Earth.
Yep.
And people have gone into, I don't know if you would call it court, but they've gone into what looks like hearings, I guess. I've seen a few of these where they ask and they say, why are these documents in existence? Why does it say this? And we don't get to know this. And they really just kind of don't answer you.
Yep. They don't. And like the military, they constantly change out the people involved, and they keep the real information. The people who work behind the computers or work personnel or maybe order parts, they're oblivious to the whole thing. But the people at the very top, the administrators, they know what's going on. And it kind of saddens me that not one of them would grow a conscience and figure out a way to get the truth out. I mean, just think about how life-changing that would be. Going back to what Bart Sibrel said last week, a lot of lies like 9/11 and the Gulf of Tonkin that led to Vietnam and the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq led to a bunch of deaths. But this lie was a good lie, right? It celebrated man making, it's the greatest accomplishment of mankind. Just imagine the dominoes that would fall if we could get the truth out and make people understand that this was indeed a lie, and all of the dominoes that would fall after that.
Right, and it's true. And the moon landing is a really big one because that's one that people debate about whether or not they think the Earth is round or flat. They have debated the moon landing for a long time. So that's one that people, I think, can fathom a little more easily. Like I've had people, even my husband, respond with, well, I can definitely buy that this moon landing was faked. I don't know if that means it's flat, but it's a start. And people that think the same way that I do would say, okay, well, if they fake the moon landing, there has to be a lie.
Precisely. And that's still, and again, I rejected, I wouldn't even listen to Flat Earth, but in retrospect, if, like, you can at work around the water cooler have a conversation about the moon landing and nobody's going to get upset or call you a moron. But if you say, I wonder if they did that to kind of lie about the globe and maybe we're really living on a flat Earth, the same person you were just having a logical conversation about the moon landing will completely turn you off and walk away.
100% true. Or they'll laugh and do the patronizing, like, okay, sweetheart.
Yeah. You need to go down to HR and get your head examined.
Yes.
That's very interesting. Again, I hope, in my lifetime we can shine the truth on these lies and kind of get things to swing our way because, it seems like we haven't had a win in a while. And when they want us to feel good, they'll give us our little feel good story. When we need a hero, they'll feed us our little hero. But, at the end of the day, things don't really change.
Right. It's so true. And I'm with you. I pray every single day that we get to see this, actual awakening for a fact. We get to see hey, this is really how it is, guys. And it would change absolutely everything. I mean, we would all stop fighting each other. Yeah, it would make everyone finally see that everything we all fight about is by design so that we don't fight them.
Yeah, tremendous point. Every time you turn on the news, they throw out that little piece of bait and we all go for it and argue amongst each other. And it's a sad
If we knew that we were all from God and that we were all meant to be here, we wouldn't fight each other over who looks like what and whose rights are whose, because we all have God-given rights. And man and countries have hijacked them and blamed other people for them and made up stories. And we would realize that we actually were all put to be here in harmony, and we actually can accomplish that.
Absolutely, 100%. You're always going to have bad people in life. That's just the way it is. But you don't need entire governments to handle those type of things. I've said this before. In the Middle East, they have local sheikhs that kind of are in charge of every little neighborhood, and when something goes wrong, they handle it, and they handle it in a way that they're not going to. Some people may call it extreme, and maybe in cases they are extreme. However, I just don't like the idea of delegating our responsibilities to other people, delegating the responsibility of educating our children to other people. This guy has a drug problem, we need to put him in jail. How does that solve anything? I just think a lot of the things that we deal with. And I'm not a bleeding heart liberal. I'm a Republican, ex-Republican who is just, give him up on politics because I realize that that's never going to solve our problems. And like you said, it's more divisive than anything. And we do need to get away from the carnival and just, the difference between, the guy who's a liberal who voted Democrat and the guy who's Republican. In some cases, you're friends with people, and then you find out that they're the opposite, oh, you're a Democrat. Oh, I didn't know that. And the same guy you've been talking to for 5 years, and they want you to think, if they voted for someone else, they're evil, they're the devil. And that's not always the case.
So true. It's so true.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to go on a rant there. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
I mean, honestly, I think that we dove in so much, and it's so hard not to kind of jump from tangent to tangent. But I mean, it's just fun. It's fun to talk to somebody else who's on the same page, and to people who want to listen to other people who are, because like I said at the beginning, I'm just an ordinary person. I'm not anyone who went to school to look for any of this or been involved in any of this at any levels. I just kind of stumbled into wanting to know how our world worked, and it's changed everything for me.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad everything kind of happened in your life in the order that it did, and it's great to hear that your son is healthy and happy and doing really well. And what are your plans as far as education goes down the road?
Well, he's certainly not going to go to public school. And that is something that I would have even considered before all of this. But now, I mean, the things they're doing in schools, and especially in a state like this, it's not even believable in some ways. But something that this state is doing, and Connecticut is the loosest homeschooling restrictions in the country, I believe, if not, it's one of. So homeschooling's an option, but they're also doing what they're calling private education associations, where they're not expensive private schools, but it's almost like a homeschool co-op. They're getting these public buildings. Moms like me are starting these schools, and there's a couple of them now. They have wait lists, and they're basically bringing it back to an old schoolhouse setting, mixed ages. You can venture off with the kids that you're on the same level with, even if you're not the exact same age, not one size fits all. So I'm very interested in those, and luckily I have time to see where they're going.
Oh, that's awesome. That's something that I hope that our state is similar to that too. I can apply, I can legally educate 7 people at my house here. It doesn't matter from the age of kindergarten to 12th grade. I could run a school right out of my house up to 7 children. And then you have to apply for, as it gets bigger and things like that. There's different things, criteria you have to meet. It's not even an application. You just, certain things you have to, a certain amount of bathrooms, this, that, and the other thing. So there are a lot of options out there. Some people think, obviously there's a lot of single parents out there who work tirelessly to make ends meet. They can't homeschool. But, if you find like-minded people in your community, then maybe you can do something like you're talking about.
Absolutely. And I think if it can happen in a state like this, I mean, I'm surrounded by liberals and people who, there's nothing wrong with the education system. How could you say that? And yet we're still finding, I think there's 4 or 5 of these that have popped up. So I wouldn't be surprised if they catch on other places. I mean, people are fed up. They don't want to send their kids to go learn about sex when they're in 2nd grade, and they don't want to, have them, let alone the indoctrination system alone. I mean, the whole Rockefeller thing of, I want to create a nation of workers and not thinkers.
That's right. And
that whole system, if it weren't for the crimes against children going on in the school system, even that alone. I mean, I remember back in high school, my sister, which is funny since she's actually pretty asleep, but she dated a cop at one point who used to say to me, "Have fun at government indoctrination camp." And I never really got it. Now I do.
That's funny. Well, that's good to hear. You're a wonderful guest, and I wish you all the best, and I hope we can do this again down the road, and maybe touch on other subjects. I'd like to give you
I would love to. It's been a blast.
I'm glad. I really appreciate it. But I'd like to give you the floor for the last minute or two, and the platform is yours for the final message to the listeners.
Oh, all right. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed, hearing about my journey a little bit. I know I tend to rant a little bit and kind of go all over, but it's only because it becomes a passion, and it's something that I just don't want to stop learning about more and more. So I hope that something I said caught some interest, and you all can go find some of the same things I did and have as much fun with it.
Well, again, thank you very much for your time, and you've shared a lot of valuable information. And if anybody wanted to reach out to you, if maybe something you said resonated with someone, is there a way they could link up with you, or did you want to give me that information maybe off the air, and I can put it in the show description if they want to reach out to you?
If anyone does, I'm on Instagram, and I don't believe it's private. I'll check as soon as I get off of this. But it's MEGCOURN. And I don't really post a ton of stuff, more stories than posts, but I'm happy to have a message if you just want to talk. And obviously if I, post stories that people might be interested in, but I don't do that a ton. But yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach out, even if you just want to link to some of the videos that I've watched.
There you go. Again, I appreciate your time. You've been very generous, and I wish you and your family all the best, Megan.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Thanks.
You're listening to the Fact Hunter Radio Network.
Just the facts, ma'am.